joined now to talk more on how one can cope if they did not make it by Professor Tumi Diale. She's the Vice Dean of Teaching and Learning in the Faculty of Education at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Diale, thank you, ma'am, for availing yourself this afternoon. So I had set out to achieve however much I wanted to achieve, but things didn't go quite as planned. Is this, perhaps let me rephrase and ask this, right? What should I, or what kind of perspective should I have in this moment instead of thinking about failure, I guess?
I think I've always learned that failure is a first attempt in learning for us as people. So we need to actually teach our children from a very early age that failing doesn't really mean you are worthless or worth nothing. But it means at that particular moment, you are unable to get what you planned to, which is actually a normal phase in life. We all, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how much successful you are. We have learned about successful stories of people who've succeeded in life, and they can tell you their horrific stories of failure. So it is about knowing that I have failed, but I don't have to park now and now let the guts down because I have failed. But to begin to say, how do I reflect on my failure? And how do I begin to see where did the ball fall and how do I recreate the new me and come back and bounce back, as we always say.
Indeed. Let's talk to the village, because most of the time the shame or you know, the negativity then comes from the village to say, oh, my child didn't make it, or oh, Spanban's child didn't make it. What should we know, you know, about our contribution towards either helping or hurting a situation?
You know, we've always said, and I'll talk from an African perspective, we've always said it takes the village to raise the child. But I don't know where in our journey of being a village did we lose our villageness, our humility, our humaneness, our Ubuntu. Because really, we have made the whole matric thing a rat race and a competition that is so much unnecessary, that is so much not worth it. We even fail, you know, when a student or a learner has passed with a school living certificate, we fail to appreciate that they have passed. You know, somebody has not made it. For a student who has failed, we fail to appreciate that there are subjects that they have passed. They might have failed because they failed maths or they failed other subjects that lead to an actual pass based on the department's criteria. But they have achieved something. We need to begin to celebrate the little achievements as human beings.
Indeed.
And until we get to that point of actually celebrating those little achievements, we will always fail our children, we'll always fail the village, we'll always fail communities.
From the work that you do, are we still holding on to this idea that it is better to get a university degree as opposed going to, you know, a TVET college, for instance?
I am not. Fortunately enough, I'm a career psychology specialist. That's my field as a psychologist that I specialize in, and that's the field I'm teaching in higher education. And, you know, I've done with my master's and doctoral students various studies in terms of career transitioning, in terms of technical vocational education, and also in terms of special needs and disabilities. And I always advocate to say, it is not about university. It is not about a degree. It is about what the child wants. And the range of what children want, it's broad. And the range of career fields, it's broad. And I make this example. How many of us with the 20 degrees that we have, if our sewer is blocked in our houses, can we fix it? How many of us cannot even change a bulb, a globe, if it's broken? So it's those little things that we take for granted. How many of us get frustrated when the pick it up people are on strike? Yet we do not acknowledge the work that they do. Yet we do not acknowledge that they contribute to the economy, they contribute to the world of work, they contribute to who we are as a society. So it is not about university entrance. It is not about getting a degree, but it's about what children want, which is broad. And I'm happy that the minister yesterday at least began to talk about in 2023 us really gaining traction of having certificates even at lower grades, that children can know that it is okay to stop at grade 9 and exit and look at other alternative ways of education and higher learning.
I think one is reminded that the pandemic, if nothing else, has turned things on its head. So you remember when it started in 2020 and there were heavy lockdowns, it was those careers that were seen as, less in society, where people actually took to work. And we saw how important each and every single one of us is in this ecosystem of life, if you will. Perhaps in closing up the conversation, your message to a parent right now, or a child or a family that is dealing with a situation where the child did not make it or they barely just made it, how should they navigate themselves to the next chapter of this young person's life? This is the beginning, it's not the end.
I want to start by saying to the parent the phrase that always my child. This will always be your child. And without your full support, this child may not make it in life. So just pick up the pieces. Where the child has not made it, let us look at saying, how do we reinvent? How do we bring the new vibe into this child's life? Remember, you are the oxygen of that child in this desperate anxiety time of their lives. And to those learners who didn't make it, there are alternatives, and various alternatives has been spoken about. There is Rewrite. There are many other programs that you can begin to relook. There are centers that give support. To life orientation teachers, pick up your jobs. Let's go back there. Let's see how do we advise these children to be different and to actually pick up from the losses that they've had to be better and to restart their life and join the dots again. So we all have a role to play. And to community people, naming and shaming doesn't make us a better society. Together we can rally behind children who didn't make it and show them that there is still light at the end of the tunnel.
Indeed. Professor Tumi Diale is the Vice Dean of Teaching and Learning at the Faculty of Education at the University of Johannesburg. Ma'am, thank you for availing yourself